In the distant nation of Deerwood, hopelessness, anger, and suspicion prevail. The land itself calls out for ancient crimes to be answered with justice. But such crimes have been long forgotten, and to discover them again will require a great journey. And at the end of that journey, a choice that threatens to shape the nature of the world. Pillars of Eternity is an RPG where you take on the role of an adventurer in a fantasy setting who must travel the land in order to put a stop to an evil cult and their sinister plans. As is traditional for a game like this, at the very beginning you'll be able to create your own custom character from a large pool of different races and classes and backgrounds. Once you've created your character, the game starts you off as a pilgrim who is traveling to a distant town. As I'm sure you can no doubt predict, things don't go as planned. Your caravan is ambushed and you are left for dead. When you awaken, you find that not only are you alive, but you now have a strange magical power, the ability to see into people's souls, and in the process, relive major events from their lives. From that point, the game opens up as a traditional Western RPG. You'll have the opportunity to visit various towns and cities, interacting with the local NPCs either to gather information or take on quests. You'll then be able to travel around to different local maps that represent the various towns and forests and caves and dungeons that you encounter in your journeys. As you explore these maps, you'll be able to collect items and occasionally interact with NPCs, but you'll also get into battle, either with random monsters or antagonistic NPCs. Combat, when it begins, takes place in real time. However, you have the opportunity to pause it at any moment so that you can give specific orders to your party, telling them who to attack, where to move, or what magical spells to use. As you defeat monsters and solve quests, your characters will gain experience and items. Eventually, they'll be able to level up, at which point they can choose new skills and abilities which will change how they behave in combat, and may even improve their options during conversation. Now, what's great about Pillars of Eternity is that it is, at its core, a good old-fashioned Western RPG. You have a large variety of options to choose from when determining how to play your character, both in combat and out of combat as well. For instance, when picking your class, you'll find that there are virtually no restrictions on weapons and equipment. They only determine how quickly your character moves and how fast they attack. So anyone that you want can be a sword-wielding warrior or a bow-wielding ranger. There are also no restrictions on what kind of group you can have. You can recruit the game's story NPCs if you so desire. You can build an entire party of custom NPCs if that's what you want, or even go it alone and only use your starting character if you're looking for a real challenge. Pillars of Eternity also gives you a lot of freedom in how you choose to interact with its story. The dialogue trees are extensive, and you have multiple options for how you deal with any particular conflict. You can choose to lie and manipulate people. You can choose to be an intellectual and a peacemaker. You can choose to just fight or intimidate people. And it's not without consequence either. The game keeps track of your overarching trends as a character, and different choices open up later on depending upon how you behave. Now, on top of being a good old-fashioned RPG, Pillars of Eternity also keeps pace with its contemporaries in terms of its execution and, more importantly, in terms of its interface. This is a very easy game to play. Selecting your characters and activating their spells and abilities is very simple thanks to an efficient user interface. Sneaking and finding traps is very straightforward thanks to on-screen visual representations of when your characters are being observed. And even during combat, it's no challenge to get detailed information about your attacks, defenses, and magical spells so that you can better plan your strategy. And on top of all this, Pillars of Eternity provides the breadth of complexity that you expect from a large-scale RPG. There are crafting and item enchantment subsystems. There are dozens of quests and bounties that you can take on. About a quarter of the way into the game, you'll unlock a stronghold, which you can upgrade over time and which has special quests associated with it. There's even a multi-floor super dungeon that you can fight your way through if you're looking for a more combat-heavy encounter. Now, if I had to make any complaints about the game, they would be minor at best. For instance, some of the combat can be repetitive. The game has a lot of undead enemies who aren't very challenging compared to fighting the more interesting foes such as humanoids or even dragons. Also, there's a lot of spells in the game such as Confusion or Dominate, which can turn your own party members against you, and the defenses against these abilities are typically not even available until very late in the game. But beyond these minor complaints, there's nothing that, in my opinion, mars the overall experience. Pillars of Eternity is a great traditional Western RPG. I would give it 4 out of 4 stars and easily recommend it. It does a great job of providing you a lot of freedom in exploration, combat, and story interaction. And it's a great choice for any fan of RPGs. Alright, thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next turn of the wheel. Till then. Alright, just exploring the dungeons beneath my castle, and oh, look at this. It appears that there's a giant statue of a man down here. And I'm going deeper. Am I going to find his crotch? His enormous, green, copper-veined crotch? Ugh. Perhaps there were some things that man was not meant to know.